I have to thank you because SEOC is the event that every year is offering me the opportunity to meet the best people I know. So thank you so much. I'm super glad to be here with you today. So I'm Sara Roversi. I'm the founder of the Future Food Institute. I've seen lots of things about food, so I'm not going to deep dive into regenerative farming, of course, but I want to take you on my journey, sharing with you a little bit of kind of updates, because I'm pretty familiar with this big family, and I'm very glad to share the evolutions of our journey here with you today. So, of course, we're talking about systemic change. But I think that nowadays we have a big crisis in leadership. And I want to touch some dots that I think is interesting to connect. So, of course, I'm starting from food. I'm working in food that for me is everything, is the nexus. We heard before, food is connecting all of us, it's part of our culture. But then, when we're talking about food, we're talking about something that, if I'm thinking, Antonio Perdichizzi is here in the audience, was almost 15 years ago when we started. If you see the dates, in these last years, things are getting worse and worse. While we are producing food, of course, we are still extracting, because yet the global food system is not as sustainable as we want. We have been crossing the 7th planetary boundaries. And if we think about the poly crisis we are facing, this is a huge mess of paradoxes that humanity is facing. When we're talking about this time in history, there are lots of things that are frustrating me so much. We're talking about the growth of AI. We're talking about production. We are creating abundance while there's a huge amount of people, increasing amount of people that still is starving, dying for hunger. And yet we have people dying for obesities and other diseases related to food. And it's all about culture, connections, education. But then we're talking about something that, again, with the rise of AI, I'm not against AI, but let's go on. Yes? So I'm not talking about against AI, but of course, the abundance of technology that is surrounding us sometimes is not making things simpler. We are surrounded by a huge amount of opportunities to connect, but then we're working a lot with youth, and we see how much is raising the issue of mental disease, mental illness, hyper-disconnected. On the other hand, of course, we're learning. We have an abundance of knowledge and opportunities to grow, learn, and so on, but our cognitive capacity sometimes is under a huge confusion, and we're learning less. So, of course, I'm trying to connect the dots within all of that. And I'm struggling, trying to find solutions. And sometimes I'm wondering how we're going to get out of this. It's not easy to find solutions within all of this mass, say, connections of issues that we are facing every single day. And I found my solutions not, of course, traveling as I'm doing to San Francisco, Singapore, Shanghai, Tokyo. I understood that to find my solutions, I had to go back to my roots, going back to the roots, trying to understand from ancestral knowledge. And I understood that I was lucky enough to be born in a place that is in the heart of the Mediterranean. Some of you are familiar with this place. This place is Pollica. It's the Italian emblematic community of Mediterranean diet, an UNESCO intangible heritage, a living heritage. Living heritage are amazing because basically community and society are responsible not only to safeguard in a museum the heritage, but to keep the heritage alive. Transfer the heritage thanks to traditions, rituals, how much we connect and we transfer to the next generations ahead, but also we have the responsibility to make it alive in a day, now, here, with the time we're facing. And so in Pollica, that is in a place that is in the heart of Magna Graecia, where the Greek philosophers came to life 3,000 years ago, Parmenides, Zeno, the Eleatic schools, they were teaching us that we need to find the balance between humans and nature. In the same place was born the first medical school of the Western world, the Salernitana Medical School. This place is full of centenarian people. We are embedded in a geopark that is holding 1/3 of the biodiversities of the Mediterranean. I have to thank Alex, because before he was talking about regenerative farming. And when I arrived there 6 years ago, I understood the responsibility farmers had, much more than I could know before. I found out that this place that is holding 1/3 of the Mediterranean biodiversities is full of regen farmers. Farmers that didn't shift thanks to Kiss the Ground. They always practiced like that. They never practiced conventional agriculture. And then you start to connect the dots within centenarian people, the farmers, the fishermen that are still fishing with the old nets of Menaica. And then you involve scientists. And then you understand that there's a reason behind that. And that probably there are solutions to build a world that is grounded on principles that help us to understand how to put everything in balance. So I went back and I opened up the book of Pope Francis, one saying in one side Laudato Si, and the other one Terra Futura, that is a dialogue between Pope Francis and Carlo Petrini. The two of them started talking about integral ecology and the need of, first of all, having a clear political vision, caring about the environment, regenerating the environment, then thinking about the health of people, connected with the health of the society, preserving the cultural pillar, but also finding economic balance, because without an economy that can really make things work, you cannot go on. You cannot see these projects going on for the next decades ahead. And then I started connecting the dots, and I found out that this place was the best place for us, basically to learn. This place became for us like a gym. We are training ourselves on how we can bring this concept of integral ecology in our daily life. And this place, a very marginal place, like the majority of the rural areas and coastal communities that we all know, the ones that are suffering of the population and all the things that we hear and we read in the magazines, became for us the place where we started building the future. And we started understanding that we had the opportunity to connect the dots, connect different players within the society. I've been always working in innovation with start-uppers. I never spent time, and sometimes in the past I was thinking, waste the time to co-design things with policymakers, with mayors, with administrators, with people working on the ground. People that are touching policies that are implemented on a daily basis. I'm not talking about the big politicians in ministries, but the ones that are working on the ground. And we started transforming this place in our lab, literally connecting all the dots within the system and understanding that sometimes when I was telling to people, okay, you have to take a flight and then a train and then a car and then you if you want to go from Bologna to Tokyo, you almost spend the same time to go from Bologna to Pollica, because it's like that. But probably over there, you're going to learn and find solutions that can take you to a brand new way of thinking, and you see things happening on a real life, then things start to change. And I started understanding that at the beginning I was feeling that people perceived myself as kind of naive. It's naive to talk about these things. It's not naive at all. So I started saying, okay, I need to talk with business people. I need to talk with the people that talk about ESGs, funding models, and so on. And I decided to connect with science. Connect with science in a way that basically we understood that all of that can be measured with something, the cost of health. Over there, we understood that we could really codify the algorithm for longevity. And we said, okay, we need data, we need scientists with us. So So the video you see is one of the projects, the tons of projects we are running, where we started measuring. And we started measuring, for example, the level of fertility in youth between 18 and 25 years old. You see the places. The gap in fertility goes from the 30 to the 70% of difference. I'm mom of 2 boys, 18 and 21 years old. When I started seeing the numbers, I said, okay, probably we need to learn from these places and understand how we can connect and learn how to implement all of that in the daily life. And I understood that I needed leaders. And we need a different kind of leadership to take all of that into the real world. And then the leaders are leaders that have to listen, have to weave, have to be masters in connecting. And I said weave because I think that after 6 years on the ground, making my hand dirty and working with all of those big diversity of people, I understood that the art of weaving is what we need nowadays. Being the one who's connecting, who's able to collaborate, who's able to crack the system, creating potential out of that. And one of the networks that started being connected with us is the bioregional weaving labs, where there are lots of other communities around the world that are weaving and transforming entire communities. But also, I understood that I needed to bring big leaders on my side that are able to talk with the industry.
Incredibly important to achieve all of our sustainable development goals. If we can figure out how we can feed the world in a more sustainable and equitable way, how we can restore our biodiversity, our soil health, whilst doing so, and if we can also make that more inclusive, including making it work for the farmers, I think we can solve most of the world's problems. Currently, we're on the wrong trajectory. So what you're doing here is important. It's beyond importance, I would say. You bring together key opinion makers, key influencers, and key practitioners in the food system. Not only to spend some time together to listen to each other and enhance our knowledge, but also to seek solutions for these burning issues we've actually dealt with for decades and frankly haven't found yet a suitable solution that would work for all.
So my frustration is going in Davos and participating in lots of panels where there are big, gigantic companies talking about regenerative farming that has nothing about regeneration, the true regeneration. They're just taking one of the chemical principles of regeneration, but they're missing the sense of regeneration. And so I said, okay, we need to talk with the world of economy. We need to re-establish KPIs. Let's identify what are the new time frame in which we can work. We need to completely change our mindset and our system. We need to start talking about regenerative economy. Regenerative economy and life economy stands on the golden rule. If you read, treat people and the planet as you want to be treated. If you talk about that in a business room, probably people is telling you, okay, you're mad, you're naive. But this is not naivety. We strongly believe that this is the way on how we really have to reestablish the values that needs to drive our systems. And for us, this became, let's say, the true pillar from where to start. Starting in Polica was an incredible gift. For me, it's really something that was eye-opening, because I started understanding what's the role of culture in our life. We need to bring culture more, create space for that, understanding that culture is our operating system. And when we're talking about the role of culture, I want to show you this, because when we talk about that, for us, culture happens around the table. This is the example of Mediterranean diet, one of the tons of living heritages. This is the element of culture. Culture that is uniting people, where people comes together here not because, say, we were talking about togetherness. Togetherness is not just to be close, it's to collaborate. This is how we celebrate. This is last weekend. We were celebrating the birthday of Mediterranean diet. We had 700 people. Each of them opened up his home, kids were cooking, and 700 people dining together. This is one of the pillars of our culture. Here you see people dancing, and thank you for dancing. We were dancing behind the scene, but then dance, bring people together. It's again another element, a crucial element of our culture. And I'm feeling very inspired by all of those elements because sometimes we forget how important it is to create space for all of these things. Togetherness is not just proximity. You need to invest time to create space, to manage diversity and leverage the power of diversity. And this is the only way on how we can really train ourselves to create a different system and a better system. And then we end up with from margin to models, as I was framing at the beginning. A tiny place of Polica is nothing. And there are thousands of Policas everywhere in the world. Hidden of, say, dormant resources, things of you give for granted. This place, now just in my world, it's inspiring people, for example, from Tokyo or many other leaders. Just to give you an example, in the next 6 years, we have every month business leaders coming from Tokyo that now are replicating the model in different parts of Japan, understanding that they needed to shift from being the largest real estate in Japan, creating financial districts, ghost town, understanding that probably if they forget their farms, if they forget their marginal areas, if they forget the places from where the essential needs, basic elements, resources, food, clean air, good sea, biodiversities on the tiny island of Japan, they're going to lose. They're going to lose. They're not going to be alive probably in the next future. And they decided to shift, and they decided to start a huge bioregional project. So this is just a little thing, and I want to end with another connection, just to show you how much a little project that all of you can run in your own community can inspire a larger community. And I end with another video. This is something that started from Polica for us, because Polica is the sea that in Italy has been awarded for the largest number of years as the cleanest sea in the country, and was famous for their previous mayor, Angelo Vassallo, that was murdered 15 years ago. And please, let's give a big applause to Angelo Vassallo, because thanks to him, now in Italy we have a law called La Legge Salva Mare. And Polica, since decades, not 5 years, not 10, since 30 years and more, has been implementing policies and projects to protect the coast and support the fishermen. And when we arrived, we started creating boot camps, programs, supporting the few fishermen left. Then, a few months ago, another friend, Riccardo Luna, came to me saying, Sara, we need to do something because the awareness around climate is decreasing. And we said, okay, let's connect the dots. We started thinking, okay, we need to organize a climate week in Italy. And then we started talking with someone that came to us with another project, another vision, always talking about the sea. That is Jeremy Rifkin. Jeremy Rifkin came to us saying, okay, I want to support you for the climate week in Italy, but we need to talk about the importance of the oceans and the importance of water, because we are all citizens of a big planet Aqua, and no one cares about that. And I'm going to end with this video, because the example of Polica arrived in Venice, and now we are creating a law with the coalition of the 8,000 Italian mayors to establish blue communities. And again, a little seeds from a little community was launched in the broader global audience and started becoming something much more.
We're better to pay our respects to our very special water planet in the universe than in Venice, the oldest water city on our planet. These 6 days will be a clarion call to cities around the world. that water animates all of life on our unique little home in the universe.
What really lies beneath those pictures are human lives.
But what I'm suggesting here is this is a new development that we have not seen before, because we have to follow the waters. The climate events do not care about political boundaries. The floods, the droughts, the heat waves, the wildfires, the hurricanes, the typhoons, they affect specific ecosystems.
Siamo tornati a prima della fondazione dell'IPCC. Siamo tornati a prima della Convenzione quadro sul clima di Rio de Janeiro. Qui si pensa a fare bombe, non pannelli solari. Bisogna cambiare in fretta se vogliamo che ci sia un risultato, altrimenti quando prendi quella linea rossa non torni indietro in 10 anni, forse torni indietro in 10.000.
Il mio messaggio nella bottiglia è questo: non possiamo aspettare. Il momento della militanza è proprio adesso.
Proprio c'è l'ottimismo, optimism is a duty, è un dovere, ma perché è un dovere? Per l'ottimismo è legato al futuro.
Ci deve essere una sorta di comunque alleanza.
And I'm ending with the alliance of these guys. This is what we aim to do, and I think that places like this one and all the work that all of you are doing is basically the starting point to design a better world and to thrive together in a way that probably a Planet Aqua vision or the integral ecological vision can become the business as usual, as well as regenerative agriculture tomorrow can be the real conventional one in a way that we really live in balance, because as Pope Francis clearly said, we cannot live healthy in a sick planet. Thank you so much, Seok, and thank you all for the work you're doing.